We're at your discretion.
Hello, welcome. It's Christmas Eve, and for some reason, MC is feeling in the Christmas spirit and wants to talk a little bit about Han Solo being a bitch. So it's a Star Wars Christmas, and I guess it kind of fits. We have Eldritch reviewing the new Star Wars movie. He's barely through part three. I think this is going to be a 10-part series where he hangs himself at the end. It'll be great.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
joined. I'm joined here by Jensen and MC. And so Jensen, do you guys even have Star Wars over there? You're over in foreign land, right?
What? Star Wars? I've never heard of that.
Jeez. That's a bit rude, though, wasn't it, man? Dodge, good grief. I mean, Star Wars is pretty much an international phenomenon, isn't it?
Well, I figured Jensen was too old. He forgot about it.
Oh.
You 500-pounder. That's it. That's it. I'm no longer defending you. Go on, fat boy.
Ow. Okay.
Hey, just because my chair broke last night and I had to duct tape it back together like Boogie doesn't mean I'm fat.
No, you want to talk about your chair breaking? It's the fact that it went straight up your asshole and you didn't notice for 4 hours.
That's what that was?
You guys
You thought it was Goku.
you guys are horrible. No, but I'm just curious. All right, now, unlike you guys, I was old enough to go and see the first Star Wars when it first came out in the theater, in its first run. I was not there for the first day, but I was there for within the first week. I had gone to see Star Wars. All right, and so what I wanted to know is you guys are a lot younger. What was your impression of Star Wars when you first saw it?
Okay, I'll go with this. Well, obviously, I didn't get to see it way back when for strange and weird reasons. It coming out 10 years before I was born, being the primary. But I actually really bloody liked it. I'll be honest with you. Though I have to say, I was actually more of a fan of Empire Strikes Back than the other two.
Yeah. What? How old were you when you first saw it?
Oh, God, what was I? About 6, 7? Yeah, it was either 6 or 7. No,
What
I
about
was
you,
6.
man, Dodge?
I don't know. I was probably about the same age Jensen was. But I saw it on VHS. Like I said when we were off air, we went out and got the old VHS tapes. And then about 2 weeks later, they came out with the enhanced edition or whatever. Or maybe it was a year later. But then they came out, when they completely computer redid everything, added a bunch of shit to it, and then re-released it. So then we had to turn around and buy it again.
Well, I mean that went for everybody that bought it on VHS when it first came out, including me, by the way.
But did I like it? Yeah, but Han Solo shot first. Just saying.
Oh, God, no, not that again.
Well, that will never die. That will never die. But
Unlike
what
Grizzle.
did it?
Sorry.
Did you just watch it as entertainment? I mean, what impact did it have?
Well, for me, it was science fiction. I have always been sci-fi nut. I've, pretty much since my first bunch of memories are things like watching Star Trek with the family and things like that. So yeah, there was, I'm being told about this by the old brother. And it's like, oh, you really need to see this. Oh, cool. Yeah, you look like that one, pointing at the Wookiee. So, yeah, abuse at a young age.
It's the same with you, man.
No,
Well,
okay.
well, real quick, voice. It's in the White Wolf text chat is the link, so go ahead and join. And I liked Star Wars better than Trek when I was a kid. It was more fast paced. And it just didn't seem as slow, right? I mean, Star Trek is great when you're older and you can understand how it's actually better. But when you're a kid, the fast-paced journey of Empire, is really awesome. Now, A New Hope, it's kind of slow itself, and I don't know. I don't think A New Hope was really all that good, was it?
Oh no, the New Hope is phenomenal, but that's just my impression. But I'll get to I'll get to why I'm asking these questions. Nerd, go ahead. When was the first time you saw Star Wars? The first Star Wars?
Oh, crikey. I don't have the greatest of memories, but I think it was probably Christmas time, and I'd say probably it came out in '77, so I probably saw it on TV in about '81 or '82 on the first Christmas. The first Christmas it was on TV. So that's when I first seen it, and then I saw it. Well, I know Jansen can back me up here. Basically, every Christmas after that for at least 15 years. So
Yes. Oh gosh, yes.
Well, how old were you?
Oh, I was a wee lad. I don't know what, 5 or 6.
Okay. Now, the reason I was asking you guys about this is because obviously I'm much older than you, and as I've said, I saw this as a teenager when I was when it came out in the first run in the theaters. All right, and the impression from a cultural standpoint is for me is completely different, and the reason for that is where we were as a society in the 70s. Right, we were coming off of the Watergate. We were in the throes of the the gas line crisis and everything. And what's more is movies had taken a very dark turn. All right, the movies coming out at that time. You of course have Planet of the Apes. You have a bunch of nihilistic type movies along those lines. You have The French Connection. You have 3 Days of the Condor. These are the movies coming out. All right, and they're all presenting the world in a very dystopian type of the type of environment. There's it's almost as if there's no hope, right? And I'm not trying to make a play on the
Well, AMC, let's be honest, when it comes to Planet of the Apes, have you seen Maxine Waters these days?
Ow.
Shot.
Oh, but these things were all negative, right? And the other thing, of course, is science fiction movies. Science fiction at that point were obviously plastic masks. When you had a kind of monster, the closest thing that you had was Robbie the Robot from Lost in Space. And so even if you like the sci-fi genre, you are already a freaking hell of a nerd to begin with, because the movies were so poorly done, for lack of a better term. All right. And when Star Wars came out with the special effects and everything, it was a game changer. But like I said, it wasn't just a game changer because of the special effects. It was also, it brought back the enjoyment of going to the movies to see the good guy. The good guys winning, the hero's journey and everything. And it really put people back into the mindset that not everything is so wrong and bad and garbage.
Oh, come
You
on.
realize-
Let's be honest. When Huff blew up Aldron, you were wanking off in the cinema. Come on.
Well, no, and you realize that the good guy you're talking about, one is in a fursuit, so it's a furry. The other is some weird monk dude, and the third is a smuggler. I mean, these are also not atypical good guys either, right?
No,
Yeah,
no.
but I think I can MC, if I remember correctly, is a farm boy who was born in a desert. So I think there's a relation there.
I was a farm boy, and I must admit that is an aspect that did play into it. Very true. Although I live in a desert now, the Nebraska is not a desert. Hey, Farty, how's it going? Okay, well, Farty's either his microphone isn't working or something, or he walked off for a little bit. So I wanted to. The reason I was asking about this is because it became such a cultural phenomenon. All right. Now I can understand why it became a cultural phenomenon from my perspective, but the youth, you guys are so much younger, you know. And that's why I was curious your impressions and where all this came from.
I think a lot of it has to do with when they remade it and they added the updates to the visuals and added extra scenes and all that stuff. They kind of brought it back and made it fresh again and new to my generation. And then with the next generation, they made the prequel series.
Yeah, we don't talk about them.
We'll get to the prequels later.
Well, I have to say, if you're talking about, I mean, A New Hope was brilliant and I liked it. But I have to say, I actually enjoyed the movie that came out, I think it was 2 or 3 years later, a lot more.
Yeah, The Empire Strikes Back. Hey, Farty.
No. Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I thought it was better than A New Hope.
Well, Star Trek: The Motion Picture was something that I mean, I really did. A lot of people absolutely hated it, and I was like, I loved it. But then again, I was the Star Wars, the Star Trek fan from way back when. Farty, how old were you when you first saw Star Wars?
Wasn't until until the second one came out that I was sort of old enough to know what the fuck was going on with the first one.
Okay.
So whenever that was.
So did you see the Empire Strikes Back in theater?
Yes.
Okay. And
that's 79-80, give or take.
What was your impression of that?
Well, honestly, at the time, I was still too young to sort of comprehend what the hell was going on, and severe ADHD, untreated at the time, and all that kind of stuff. I was just, it's like, yay, pretty colors, Darth Vader, ooh.
Did you demand that your parents, give you Star Wars toys as a kid?
Yeah. My brother was the spoilt one, so he got all the really, really good ones. I got all the really shit ones. So it's even worse than you think, because like my brother got all the TIE Fighter and all this kind of shit and proper Hasbro fucking stuff, like figures and stuff. And I got like the $2 shop fucking rip-off Star Adventure fucking toy. Like the really shitty knockoff fucking action figures where the arms don't even bend and all this kind of oh fuck. So yeah, I always got the cheap knockoffs. My brother got all the good stuff.
Somebody's still bitter about that. God damn.
The worst part about it, right, was that my brother hit fucking high school and he's done nothing but fucking smoke weed for the rest of his life, right? He's never left the city that he lives in. He's never left the state that he lives in, let alone the fucking country, right? And he's jealous of me because fucking as soon as I hit high school, I basically fucking left and joined the army, and fucking I've had a license since I was old enough to get one. I was licensed to drive a 40-ton forklift before I was licensed to drive a 4-ton car, which was funny. I've been overseas several dozen times. I'm now fucking basically retired on a pension. and he's now having to work because like he's done nothing his entire life and he's got no superannuation stocked up. The cunt's going bald too, which is fucking hilarious. He didn't realise until earlier this year. He just got one of those new click cameras fucking installed in his front door, and he was looking at himself on the phone, going, "Fuck, I'm going bald." But he's fucking jealous. He's actually jealous of me because he hasn't gotten off his ass and done anything with his fucking life. Yeah, I've gotten everything handed to me, apparently.
I'm going to enjoy this next bit, just as a response to Mad's comment about me being so old. Mad, you never told me that Farty's your brother.
Yeah, you like that Star Avenger toy, don't you? You little shit.
But Farty probably remembers this, and so does maybe Nerd to an extent. You guys remember what the old sci-fi movies were like?
Yeah.
All right, where basically, I mean, the special effects were, well, let's be honest, laughable. They were crap.
Oh yeah, even for the time they didn't date well.
I mean, that was one of the. That was
I have to say, MC, that it's the 1950s sci-fi movies or the 70s or early 80s. Let's be honest, the women were dressed a lot hotter back then.
Well, and actually, what about Lost in Space? Didn't that premiere in like '74 or some shit?
Lost in Space. Lost in Space was in the '60s, dude.
Well, then there you go. That was before Star Wars, and that's not bad.
Have you seen Lost in Space? Have you taken a look at the special effects that they had?
Yeah, didn't the robot look like they put a bunch of boxes together?
No, the robot was actually for that time frame. It was phenomenal. All right, people were actually real impressed, even though it was actually a ripoff from the Forbidden Planet. But the other things, the other aliens races that they encountered and so forth, they were all, like they were in Star Trek. Okay,
Humanoid.
Either humanoid with just being painted with a different color, or with things stuck on them that were obviously fake.
And of course, the polystyrene buildings, rocks, plants.
Go ahead, Nerd.
The one thing I do take away from Lost in Space is that it was my first exposure to a pedophile in Dr. Smith. Let's be honest. You know that what was going to happen if anything happened to those parents. That wee boy was going to get rogered, but good.
Yeah.
Which is some that was something that was different about the science fiction genre back then, is because you had to make up for the story some other way. The way that they would normally make up for the story is by putting in certain themes that were generally taboo. All right, in the other in the rest of the the movie making public, things like Dr. Smith being a real bad guy, even though they got to carry him around and take him around everywhere. You didn't see that anywhere. Where the characters, Dr. Smith is there, but nobody likes Dr. Smith because they know he's a sadistic son of a bitch and everybody hates him, and yet at the same time they don't ever leave him behind. Like personally, Dr. Smith would have been jettisoned, but they're taking a character that was, a betrayer, right? In that kind of betrayal kind of environment, and those kinds of themes, you really didn't see those kinds of themes in the movies until the 70s, where it was, like I said, so dystopian, and that's what made Star Wars stand out so brightly. It's also, to be honest, one of the reasons why because Star Trek also had that same, there's a hope out there, things can get better, which was at such at odds with the way that the general Hollywood shows that were coming out at that time.
Just real quick, getting back to Dr. Smith being a rock spider, you can just imagine if they redid Lost in Space nowadays, it'd be Danger, Will Robinson. Danger, Will Robinson. Engage Chris Hansen protocol. Come over here, Dr. Smith. Take a seat.
Well,
No.
when you had that
Take a seat.
album, because you had the what do you call him? Played it in the remake with the Friends guy. The Dr. Smith, and that was what do you call him? Come on, Jansen. He's British. What do you call him?
Oh crap!
He was Churchill.
Yes.
He played Churchill recently.
He also played
Yeah, and then
Dracula.
there's the TV show that's just came out that I
Gary.
haven't seen yet. So yeah, that's it.
Gary's.
Yeah.
Gary
Gary
Oldman.
something or other. That's the puppy.
Oldman.
Thank you. Yep.
I mean, if you really want to know what things were like, take a look at the old style Logan's Run.
Oh,
right.
that's awesome.
Right, where they had what's her name, Farrah Fawcett Majors. All right, as one of the whole reason she was there was for one scene because she was famous and she was eye candy coming from Charlie's Angels. All right.
Oh, when Farrah Fawcett died, she got up to heaven, and St. Peter said, "Listen, Farrah, you've been such a wonderful spirit and a shining light, and all this, and all the, your whole life, and like we'll give you one huge wish, whatever you want." She goes, "I just want all the children in the world to be safe." And then St. Peter goes, "Right, done." And then Michael Jackson turns up behind her and goes,
Nice.
That's
Well,
cool.
let's take it back around to Star Wars. Okay, so supposedly George Lucas had all three films already planned out. How did he know the first one was going to work?
Oh,
I mean-
anybody who tells you that, they're just full of little crap.
Yeah, he didn't actually have all three. He had the first one, and originally it wasn't even called A New Hope. It was after the success of it, and he goes, "Well, shit, I better do a couple more."
Yeah. Although it was listed as number 4, but he didn't really have all of that planned out. No. And what the most surprising thing about that, to be honest, right, about Star Wars was the fact that they got Harrison Ford, because unlike the other actors that were on the first one, all right, with the exception of James Earl Jones from the voice perspective, Harrison Ford was the only actor that had other larger roles. Okay, all right, in Hollywood. The rest of them were relatively unknown. Now, obviously, Carrie Fisher, all right, comes from a family line, but she wasn't really known as an actress, all right, until Star Wars. Mark Hamill wasn't known as an actor. Nobody knew who he was until Star Wars. They became household names because of that. And even Harrison Ford, he was able to take advantage of it, but he was the only one that had actually been in major roles before.
Well, no, and let's be totally honest about Mark Hamill. He pretty much, even after Star Wars, was just a voice actor, right? I mean, that's pretty much his one role that defined his entire career was Luke Skywalker.
Well, yeah, but I think that, truthfully, with Mark Hamill, I think the main reason why that happened had to do with him. And what I mean by that is he went the bad boy frickin' rebel without a clue route for a while, which is how he ended up with that scar on his face. And when you're in Hollywood, if you're going to be, if you're going to be one of those actors, it's real rare, all right, for you to become a leading man, all right, unless you've got the Cary Grant, Rock Hudson good looks, Harrison Ford good looks, all right. So if you get a scar early on in your career, you're going to struggle. If you're not considered a good looking man, you're going to struggle. There's really not very many leading men that you can even point to. There's a couple, right? I mean, Gene Hackman, all right, but that's because of his acting skills. Walter Matthau, but those are the exceptions, not the rule in Hollywood. Same thing for women, though. I mean, I'm not going to deny that.
Actually, I don't know if you know this, but apparently Hollywood will not actually allow women with scars to actually do movies anymore. Did you hear about that?
No, I hadn't heard that.
What's Tina
Yeah.
Fey gonna do?
What did she do beforehand? No, sorry, dude. Seriously, apparently women with scars are not actually going to be allowed to do films. They're going to have to either cover up the scar or, you know, Photoshop it out or whatever they need to do. Apparently, they're refusing to do it. It's really weird.
What if, right? The Sheila's got a scar already, right? And then she's got a role as a battered wife, and she's got to have scars.
That's actually the funny thing. If they have to put the makeup on to give them scars, that's fine. It's only if they've actually got natural scarring. It's so bloody weird.
Okay, well, let's say that you're right. You didn't know that it was going to be a trilogy. All right, the way they ended the first one then doesn't make any sense at all without the second, does it?
Oh no. It was a standalone by itself. All right,
Yeah.
because you got to remember. I mean, this was the hope to sit up there and bring up. Yeah, there's still a bad guy out there, but that's how all movies ended back then. Was that if you wanted to make a new one, you left something there for them. But you got to remember they were fighting the Empire. All right, Vader was just a member of the Empire. He wasn't as big a bad guy, you know, the main bad guy until really the Empire strikes back. And even then, what do? They expanded it by creating the Emperor. All right, but the Empire Strikes Back, and let's get into that now. Actually, was probably, with the exception of possibly Aliens, the only movie that I have seen that was a sequel that was better than the original. With the sequel was literally far and away better character, better acting, better directing. The character, the writing was better, right? The character development was better all around. All right,
Terminator 2.
People were going to the Empire Strikes Back thinking that they were going to see, all right, just a sequel to Star Wars, and came back going, this is even better. People were absolutely blown away. And what I remember more than anything else was everyone talking about how before The Empire Strikes Back actually hit the theaters, everyone was talking about how the special effects were going to be that much better. All right. And we were like, wow, because to us, the special effects from Star Wars was already phenomenal. So we're hearing this, it'll be even better. And you came out of that movie and no one was talking about the special effects. They were just talking about the movie.
Terminator 2.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Number 3.
It was really a phenomenon. That's what I think. Yeah, A New Hope was groundbreaking, and it took you in a way that we had never seen before, right? And the concept and the special effects were phenomenal. But The Empire Strikes Back is what made it a franchise. It's what caused everybody to go, okay, I've got to see the next one. We've got to follow this soap opera in space.
Well, yeah, no, and how did they do the walkers? Was that model work, kind of like on Star Trek?
Stop motion models.
Yep. Stop motion. Yeah, I remember when they first came out with it. Before they, I hate to say this, but when you saw it in the movies, if you were watching it really closely, you could see the panels. All right, that they were using for the stop motion for the legs. Now they have digitally edited all that out, but you literally could see the panels, all right, as they were moving it. But it didn't matter because the movie was just so much better. Like I said, yeah.
Well, there's one that you can still see, even in the HD versions. It's still got the little peg in, but there's one of the walkers that falls sideways, and you can see on his back, the back left leg, the little peg come up from under the stage to knock him over.
Yeah, I mean, you can see those things, but at the same time, You're just blown away by the movie. Like I said, the thing that caught everybody off guard was just the actors and actresses. They didn't expect them to be able to act that well. They really didn't. Nobody was expecting that from Carrie Fisher, and nobody was expecting that from Mark Hamill. I'm serious.
I've got to head, guys. I'll see you all later.
All right,
Have fun, peoples. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Total Pip.
So I mean, that's the thing about the Empire Strikes Back is it expanded the characters, and it introduced some more characters, but it gave depth to them all. It gave depth to Han Solo. It gave depth to even Mark Hamill's character. All right, it introduced Yoda, which everybody loved. All right. So yeah, go ahead, Bandot. You were going to say something?
Well, yeah, okay. Yoda. Everybody does love Yoda now. But wasn't that risky? I mean, let's bring in a little green dude that's going to look completely outrageous and just kind of be comic relief and have him ride around on Luke's back for half the movie. I mean, who the fuck thinks of that shit?
No. I love the premise of it. The whole, Luke rocks up and he's looking for some, famous warrior, thinking like, buddy, what's his name? Fucking with the Conan the Barbarian or something like that. And he's this little tiny green thing that can fucking lift buddy X-wings with his mind and all this kind of shit. And that's what subversion is, Ryan Johnson. Little tiny green dude is actually like this fucking super bloody warrior that super famous. Like that's not Yoda, but how the fuck, And this is something too. Like ever since you saw Yoda, you wanted to actually see like this great warrior in action and all this kind of stuff. And it's funny because like I remember when we actually did finally, when he pulls out his lightsaber to fight Dooku, and I'm like, yes, finally, yes, I've been waiting fucking 30 bloody years for this, yes. And now apparently that scene is panned as being like really shit and cheesy and corny and stuff. It's one of the worst parts apart from the fucking 08 scene. Oh
no, I can agree with you there. Of all the things that the prequels got me interested in when the prequels were going there, was the fact that you wanted to see just what Yoda was like when he was younger. Okay, and but what the Empire Strikes Back left you was you had Han Solo stuck in carbonite. Luke had escaped, but you knew there was going to be a third one, and you couldn't wait. Nobody could wait for the Return of the Jedi. I mean, people were chomping at the bit.
Well, Han stuck in carbonite at the end of the second one. They already knew there was going to be a third one. Well, the cast knew anyway, and bloody Harrison Ford didn't want to do Han Solo because he didn't want to be typecast, and he wanted to be killed off at the end of Empire. Then they stuck him in carbonite. And they said, "Well, here's a compromise. We'll give you time to think about it. By the time we start shooting the next one, we'll just freeze you in this one. And if you want to come back, well, then we'll thaw you out. And if you don't, well, then..." and then they offered him a shit ton more money. And then by the next one, he goes, "All right, I'll come back for this one." And then the Farce Awakens. I already knew the 6 months. I even got a fucking video going. I'm an arsehole where I just blurted out that Han Solo was getting killed and Luke was only in it for the last 30 seconds. By the way, spoiler alert. That was the entire video. The Harrison Ford, and he came back just so as he could get Han killed off finally, so he didn't have to do it anymore.
Yeah, but Harrison Ford had already made his bones by then. You know, after Empire, all right, you end up with Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? So he was already a hot item in Hollywood, all right. And Raiders of the Lost Ark was awesome. Let's be honest. All right. Now, granted, it's not part of the Star Wars genre, but he was no longer typecast. I mean, that's how he ended up on, with Patriot Games, for example. All right. So Harrison Ford had plenty more of areas to expand in. And even, like I said, even before Star Wars, people don't remember this, but Harrison Ford had already played a number of roles. He had already been in Force 10 from Navarone, right, with a number of well-known actors. Now, the movie was not as widely acclaimed as, The Guns of Navarone, but it was still pretty widely watched.
And American Graffiti.
And American Graffiti, that's true.
Yeah.
Right. But he was the only one from that, like I said, from the original Star Wars that was really a known quantity that he could act. That his acting, he was the only one that anyone knew had acting chops, really. All right. Yes. Obviously, James Earl Jones, people knew that he had acting chops, but you stuck him behind a mask. He was just a voice for all intents and purposes.
Not to get too sidetracked, but you know the Mandela effect? Even James Earl Jones says, Luke, I am your father. Just saying. I get it, it's not in the movie, but even the actor that played Darth Vader thinks it's in the movie. Just throwing that out there.
Obi-Wan never told you about your father. Yes, no. I mean, those things exist. And then, like I said, everyone couldn't wait for Return of the Jedi. And let's be honest, Return of the Jedi wasn't as of the first three. All right, it is the weakest. All right, it's great that it's an ending. It ends well. The Ewoks were overdone. Okay. I mean, quite frankly, the Ewoks were overdone. They were an interesting addendum to it. It would have been better if they just stuck with they were on the planet with the Wookiees. All right, that's my opinion. But at least it wrapped everything up in a satisfying bow. You know what I mean? And you were happy where Star Wars ended there. All right. And when they announced there were going to be prequels, okay, the excitement was building again because for the exact reason, all right, that Farty was talking about, wanting to see the especially Yoda fight. I wanted to see the fight scene with Yoda. All right, and you had to wait. All right, but that was the one thing I was looking forward to more than anything else.
And just with the prequels, I mean, like they say the acting was wooden and all this kind of stuff, but you have a look at it back in the day, right? Yeah, well, what's in the prequels? You got politicians, you've got council members, you've got a regimented order of Jedis, you've got fucking. That's about it. Of course, it's going to be wooden and regimented and procedural and, up your bum and all this kind of stuff. You're not going to be standing there, walk up to Samuel L. Jackson, his mate's window. Hey, slip me some skin butter. Fucking, you're not doing that. So I don't think the acting was really actually all that wooden.
Well, let's put it out there. Okay. There were some good moments in the prequels. So this is how freedom dies, to thunderous applause. I love that line. And let's get right to the heart of it. Jar Jar, was he racist? I don't think so. Was he useless? Yeah.
Well, okay, the first of the prequels, all right, where you get introduced to these characters. I think that conceptually, it was great. Okay, the idea of having a city underwater, all right, the whole idea of the Gungans, being on the same planet with humans, and that they're basically a waterborne type of race, right? To be honest, that concept was was novel. It was new. People hadn't done it really. All right. And so from that aspect, if you take a look at it from a visual effects for it, it was phenomenal. Now, once again, the Jar Jar being a useless character. Yeah, that was a bit much. The fact that Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker's mother was a slave, unnecessary, kind of, pedantic, to be honest.
Well, with the whole racist element, it's not Jar Jar who's racist. It's actually Return of the Jedi that's racist. I mean, there's the argument that Darth Vader was only evil when he was a black fella with James Earl Jones's voice, and then he turned good, and then he was a white guy. But it's not that. They missed a whole cue. It's Luke Skywalker and like with the lightsaber fight. And he's all dressed in black, right? And like. He's fighting Darth Vader and he's tapping into the dark side, all dressed in black, and it's only sort of at the end where part of his uniform sort of comes apart, and it sort of forms this white triangle that goes from his left side over to his right side, because you see the white is right.
What the hell was that? But no, I thought that it was interesting to see. The one thing, the other person, of course, is you want to see Ben Kenobi. You want to see Ben Kenobi when he was younger, and you wanted to see him fight, right? So from that part, you have to say that it delivered that. Okay, now it wasn't as satisfying. Qui-Gon Jinn is. I like the character. He shouldn't have gone out the way that he did. I thought that was kind of cheap. Okay. And like I said, Anakin, it was okay. I didn't, unlike most people, when you have a child actors, what do you expect from the child? The child's just going to deliver his lines the best way they know how, but you're still talking about a kid. I mean, how many kids are really good actors as children? Let's be honest.
I think the main argument with the episode 1 Anakin was that he was too young. Like they didn't really want a 6-year-old Anakin. They'd preferred probably like a 10 or 15-year-old Anakin to start off with. I think that was their main argument.
Yeah, I think a teenager as Anakin probably would have been a better fit. What do you think, nerd? If you're listening.
Hang on.
I caught him in mid-sandwich there.
It's Christmas. I'm eating chocolates.
Oh, my mistake. It's bonbon time. Right?
Yeah, well, no, not bonbons. What the fuck are these things? Lindor.
Okay.
No, basically, I think you're right there. If they had started off with someone who was 12 to 15, it would have worked better, because you had this kid and he's meant to, you have him fall in love with Padme, who's like in her 20s, and he's like 6 or 7 or something, and it didn't work, if you know what I mean, for the first movie. So yeah, they made him way too young.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Now, Maddie sits there and said that you had to have him younger because you had to train. You had to train him as a small child. The thing is you already had the expectation that Darth Vader began his training late anyway. So having him as a teenager, even if it was a young teen, I think would have fit a lot better.
Well, the whole too young or too old sort of thing is already crapped on by the original trilogy, because Luke was like 19 when he started. So that's a bit of a silly rule to go back to back in the day. Oh, he's too young or too old. It's like, we've already seen Luke do it, and he was 19. So too old my ass.
Well, yeah, then that's one of the things I didn't particularly like either, and I think that would have been better if he was a teenager, if Yoda would have stood up there and made that kind of a comment at that point.
Oh, furthermore, there's Mary Ray Sue, however old she is, and she's only just started.
Well, but we can deal with that later. All right.
Well, the one thing I think the prequels also did correctly was they showed the Clone Wars. They didn't dwell on it too much, but they showed it fairly decently. And then you also have the cartoon that supplements it, that goes more in depth on the Clone Wars. I thought that was really interesting.
Let's talk about that. I mean, you watched the Clone Wars, the cartoon version of the Clone Wars, and the first thing that you come away with is the fact that why aren't we seeing more about Ahsoka? We missed the entire Ahsoka thing not being in the movies.
She shits me.
She shits me? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, she shits me.
Well,
like,
I think
it's just a popularity that shits me. Is like every cunt won't shut the fuck up about her, and it's like I can't fucking stand the fucking sound of her fucking name. And then, like, the first time I did see her, it was a snippet from fucking the Clone Wars, and it's the stereotypical fucking I'm a girl, look what I can do, and then she's bouncing off shit and winning the day and all this kind of stuff showing up Obi-Wan Kenobi. I was like, oh, fuck off.
Well, but I think Ahsoka would have been much better introduced into the actual movies. It would have brought out a lot more. And I also agree with Mitch and Maddie here, where he says less about Anakin's training and more about Obi-Wan's teaching would have been better. And I agree with that.
I think when it comes to the Clone Wars, I think the prequels should have ended. They should have started off with a teenage in the first one. Then a full movie should have been dedicated to his training, learning what happens at the Jedi Council, the big building, going on a few missions. Then the third one should have been a lead up to the Clone Wars, and then the Clone Wars should have been a trilogy by itself.
Now, for that could have been worthwhile. Okay, but I think the problem there suffered, quite frankly, from the vision. All right, and I know people want to sit there and talk about George Lucas's vision. I think his vision of the future at that point let him down. His idea of the Emperor and how the Emperor would take power and so forth, while I don't disagree with that kind of an approach, he didn't make them believable. In a lot of ways, I never looked at Senator Palpatine as being a believable character. All right. Now, part of that, I think, though, could be simply because you know who he is. You know he's the Emperor. All right. From the first time you see him in the first one, you're like, this is the guy that becomes the Emperor.
Yeah, and I don't like how they had him controlling both sides of the war. I get it. Yeah, create a war to take power. Yeah. But I think it would have been much better. I think it would have been much better if it was an actual war. Maybe the trade council or whatever the fuck they were. Maybe
Trade
they were
Federation.
actually. Yeah, maybe they were actually in the right, and the Jedi were wrong for once.
Technically, if you really look at it from an objective standpoint, the Trade Federation actually was in the right when it comes to the later prequel trilogy, because they're trying to not be subjugated by what is now a totalitarian government. So, yeah, Trade Federation did nothing wrong.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that the Trade Federation did nothing wrong.
Well,
right?
They were dicks in the first movie. They started what would lead to a totalitarian season of control and power, but
they tried to assassinate Padme.
The problem with the Trade Federation, as I saw it, is they made them 2D characters. All right.
Oh, and that's the thing. When you get to the second and the third movies, it's very much these are the bad guys, these are the good guys, except they're not. That's what really actually kind of fucks up Star Wars as far as the prequel trilogy is concerned. And this is why the original trilogy is actually as successful as it is. You know the Jedis are the good guys. You know the Sith are the bad guys. It's pretty cut and dry. It's not unique. It's not creative. But it makes things very straightforward. But when you start bringing in Genos and the Trade Federation, Padme, Anakin, Palpatine, and you start making everything 50 Shades of fucking gray, it kind of takes away from what makes Star Wars, Star Wars.
To an extent, I would agree with you, but I think the biggest sin in the prequels, right, was the whole idea of midichlorians.
Oh God, don't even get me started on that.
Well, okay, this is how I can explain that. Now, what else are you going to teach, say to a little kid? How else are you going to explain the Force? Obi-Wan in the first one said it's this force that binds with us, it moves through us, and all this kind of stuff.
That's an energy field that binds us and flows through us and connects the entire galaxy.
Yeah, this, that, and the other thing, right? Mm-hmm. Now explain that to a little kid. It's
easy
like
magic.
It's like these little things inside you, and they give you power. Like like you explained in your immune system too.
Okay, but it became an actual measurable thing.
Let me test your white privilege real quick.
The prequels where they introduced, I haven't seen anybody that has this many midichlorian levels, all right, except for Master Yoda. That was like, what? It destroyed.
It's stupid.
It destroyed the mystique of the Force, of the ability to try and in some ways it got rid of the whole concept of training. Do you really need to train to be in the Force, or do you just need to be born with the superior number of midichlorians? It kind of ruins the whole point of training to a large extent. It reduces it now to, you got to be talented.
Well, what you're saying is essentially it takes away the mysticism of it. Yeah. And it makes it kind of like a biological thing where it's like, well, wait a second, are you telling me that I could just give me the best fucking vaccine that you have? Make me Ruth Bader Ginsburg so I don't die when I'm 95 years old.
How come you can't take a shot and get a bunch more?
No. It's like hypnotism. Some people are susceptible and some aren't. The more midichlorians you are, the more susceptible you are to the Force. You're not born with the knowledge like Mary Ray fucking Sue.
Okay, but if that's the case, if you're already sensitive to the Force, you're already at the point where your midichlorians allow you to be sensitive to the Force, then why not just boost yourself up for it with a few dozen more?
Okay, you know what? I will actually defend the midichlorian thing if it was presented in a different way. If it was a form of measurement, that'd be one thing. But they presented it as something that was biological, where it's like, oh, congratulations, you have this many white blood cells. You're good with the Force. Yeah, fuck off.
I mean, if they explained that midichlorians are an indicator of the Force, that would be one thing. Okay, I could have dealt with that. But when they started saying it's what creates the Force, that's where I had the problem. And I thought it kind of soured me a little bit. When they did that, it kind of soured me a little bit. I didn't really have, the kind of after they did that, I didn't have the expectations were not that high. All right, for the second movie in the prequels, and quite frankly, it didn't get better. Okay, because the whole, I'm going to be real blunt. The Padme Anakin love story was absolutely atrociously done. It was horribly done. I mean, it was like it was like teenagers were writing the script for those two. All right, and they just wrote it badly.
50 Shades of Skywalker.
I mean, it was just, it just, you were like, what? You know,
Well, I think-
go ahead.
Well-
Yeah,
No, well, I think it shouldn't have been Padme to start with. I think it would have been better if the second one, again, this is because Star Wars, George Lucas tried to tell too many stories. One of the movies, yes, the second one was given over to Padme and stuff, but really it should have been Anakin and another Jedi. If he'd have went there at his 15, started his training, we could have saw him having a connection with a girl. Then in the second one, they could have been sent on a mission together and we'd see them get close. That would have been a much better story than, Padme would have been.
yeah,
Well,
I agree with you there.
Ironic-
They definitely
Yeah.
could have had Padme as the queen. I didn't mind the fact that Padme was the queen as much as she was too old for Anakin. All right, and let's be honest. I mean, when Anakin becomes a teenager, as he is in the second movie, she would normally be in her 20s. She would have nothing to do with it.
Well, and
Yeah.
actually, ironically enough, this is one of the few times I'll actually say this. The prequel trilogy, when it comes to a lot of the fan fiction that has been written about it, was actually probably better than what the actual prequel trilogy was, which should tell you a little something.
Yeah, getting back to the midichlorians thing, you were saying that, they instantly become Jedis and stuff like that. No, I put it to you that if Anakin wasn't found, he'd still be working in that fucking junk shop as a 60-year-old, not knowing that he had the Force. Like, you still need to know how to work a lightsaber and all that. You don't just instantly wake up one day and already know that shit. And I wish fucking Rian Johnson had figured that crap out. Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
And Geek Cthulhu, you're correct. Around that time, the fan fiction was fucking terrible, but in retrospect, it's better than what Disney's doing. And also, I have a question. Since we're talking about Anakin. What the fuck did Anakin actually do? In regards to the prequel trilogy, aside from being good at pod racing and being a somewhat decent pilot and building a fucking droid, what did Anakin do?
He's
Because I
still
can't
alive.
think of a damn thing.
He built 3PO.
Aside from building a droid and winning a pod race, what the fuck did he do?
Well, and that's another thing, to be honest. Why did he have to be building 3PO? There was no need for that. All right? There's no need for that. That tie-in was just, in my opinion, that was silly. All right? The 3PO, they could have left 3PO without ever introducing him in the prequels, and you'd have been fine.
Well, you know what he did? He managed to fucking single-handedly destroy the entire Jedi Order.
Well, the only thing he did is kill a bunch of freaking kids, which is what he does in the third movie.
Yeah, not just the men, but the women and the children too. He killed them all.
Yeah.
He massacred a thing of sand people.
Well, to be honest, that part, at least, for the way they had done the storyline, I was willing to accept. Okay, this is the start of him. The writing for that was terrible, though. The writing when he goes back to Padme and he's confessing to her could have been done so much better. There's so much better ways to have done that, and I thought the directing, if not the acting in that regard, was substandard, subpar.
I actually agree with you because
he becomes a traitor. Helps Palpatine kill fucking Windu by chopping off one of his arms.
and that's the thing. I actually agree with you guys on that one, where you see Anakin go from he's supposed to be the chosen one. He's propped up. He's put on a pedestal. And then because he thinks he's this, God's gift to the frickin' galaxy far, far away, he becomes corrupted because he's essentially slowly gets drunk with power. it was terribly written, but I liked the concept.
Well, I think that's because, to be honest, the Jedi Order was poorly written.
Yeah, well, he gets knocked back from being on the council, and then fucking the buddy Palpatine comes along and goes, "Oh, I can put you on the council." Right. So the Jedi's not your friend, but he is. But I want you to spy on them for me. Let me know what they're talking about.
Mitch the Ripper. Anakin was not a good Jedi. He was a homicidal maniac.
I mean, he was.
And then
Some people would say that made him the quintessential Jedi.
Yeah, I think we're all forgetting the fact that the only reason he became a homicidal maniac is because of a woman. Just saying.
and then there was the chat about the dreams of fucking Padme dying, and at the opera, and it's like, oh, by the way, I know how to stop cunts from dying. Come over to the dark side.
Oh, and that's the whole thing about Jedi and Sith. If you look at how they are, Jedi are supposed to be, these stoic, almost Buddhist monks, like you can light yourself on fire and not feel anything, versus the Sith are supposed to be hyper passionate, whether it's for good or bad. One tries to put away and completely, denounce any type of emotion, and the other one's supposed to embrace it regardless of whether
right,
you're
and
good
that
or
goes
evil.
back to, like I said, the Order itself, the Jedi Order, the way they portrayed the Jedi Order, I think, was poorly done. It should have been a more realistic type of order. That basically what happens is, it would have been better if the Jedi Order the Jedis were everywhere, but what they didn't realize is that amongst them was the Sith, and the Sith were building amongst them. All right, and then there was a bifurcation at that point. All right, where they didn't realize that within the Order there were the corrupted Jedi. You kind of had that with Dooku, but they didn't do it right. Instead of saying, well, what's the corruption in the Jedi Order? But they tried to make the Jedi Orders into Buddhist, the extreme version of Buddhist monks, rather than, okay, we study this way, we try to temper things. And it would have been fine if they had moderated them at least a little bit. The whole idea that, well, they're not allowed to, marry anybody. They're not allowed to fall in love. They're not allowed to have any other, anything else but the Jedi Order. What the hell did you expect them the Jedi to be? Spartans? If you take a look in history, if the Jedis were supposed to be like the Spartans were pretty vicious if you ever really studied history at all.
Well, the corruption.
And that's why you.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Farty.
Well, the corruption comes from the Jedi had become blind in the Force and allowed Palpatine to get power because they were so complacent in their own, abilities and powers and all this kind of stuff, and just simply blindly following the Senate even before Palpatine had gotten in. Had corrupted them to them. When they go off and do what the Senate asks.
To me, that's a cop-out. Yeah, okay, they became complacent. But it isn't their complacency that they should have been trying to experience. What you should have been experienced from the Jedi was the Jedi's corruption.
Yeah, see, like, instead of being an independent service kind of thing, they became a tool of the Senate. That was where the corruption comes in.
Yeah, but that's not corruption. That's just, you had to see them doing. It would have been better if you had them doing questionable things for the Senate, right? Where they don't even worry about it. For example, if good old Anakin was ordered to go take out a group of people and just assassinate them all, and he does it without any, because the Senate ordered it, and he comes back saying, yeah, the Senate ordered me to do this, and all the other Jedi said, yeah, it must have been that must have been tough, and not thought anything about it. That would have been the kind of corruption I could have accepted. But the idea that, oh well, we just couldn't see the Sith.
Well, real
technically
quick,
clone.
real
Oh,
sorry, real quick. That's the reason that we had the gray Jedi in the books. Is yeah, technically there were still Jedi, but there were also Jedi that were looking at the Jedi Council, where it's like, nah, you guys are a little too puritanical. You've kind of lost your way. You're not bad, but we can't stand by what you're doing because given enough time, you guys are going to become your own worst enemy type of thing. You're going to be no better than the Sith. Like, and if you look at the way the Sith are in the books, they're not this, purely evil Voldemort style character.
No, I understand what they are. I'm just saying the story would have been better if they had been written that way. And that Geek Thulu, that's what I'm referring to. I'm not saying what the Jedi were. I'm saying what they could have been. Okay, it would have been better for the storyline if you'd have seen them, going that way. Now I realize that for a trilogy like this, with everything else going on, dedicating that kind of time to show that would have been very difficult with everything else that was going on. I mean, let's be honest. The first movie suffered from one thing. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of moving pieces that were going on, and the second and the third movies didn't get a whole lot better in that regard.
okay, going back to with the whole assassination thing, they assassinated what's his flaps, the cunt with the 4 arms and the 4 lightsabers. He was technically half organic.
General Grievous.
That's the fella. They went to assassinate Dooku. There was the last little bit while they're at the Jedi Temple after the massacre and stuff, where Yoda and Obi-Wan are talking, and Obi-Wan says, "Take me, or let me go and take out Palpatine. Don't ask me to take out Anakin." So there's assassination, and that's only one in what, 2 movies.
Well, it's the order, the way that they did it. Like I said, the pacing from a love story standpoint between Anakin and Padme, right, was overly rushed and overly forced. All right. You don't see that developing into a true love story. Okay, that's part of it, and yet this becomes the whole fall, okay, of Anakin, right? Is he's worried about losing Padme, right? I mean, all of a sudden now he has a dream where she dies. Oh, I got to protect this. I can't allow this to happen. Everybody dies. Okay, the idea that a Jedi would see somebody die and go, well, wait a minute here. Even if it's a loved one, right? Everybody dies, right? Somehow he's going to sacrifice everything. You're still trying to figure out. I'll be honest with you. I got the impression that his whole love, quote unquote, love affair with Padme was nothing more than a teenage infatuation that was easily erased. That's how it came across to me.
Actually, I've always wondered about that. Like, why does Anakin love Padme as much as he does? Like, why is he willing to pretty much go against everything simply because I love her for reasons?
Because she's an angel.
Give me a reason. Well, that's the thing. I want one decent reason. Why the hell would Anakin, the chosen one, why is he got to throw everything away, even consider turning to the dark side, simply because he's a horny teenager? Because that's the only reason I got.
I mean, to the point where he's massacring children that are coming to him for help, that are coming to him as a savior, and he massacres them.
I mean, I'm asking a legitimate question. I am looking at the chat, like... chat, do you guys have a reason as to why Anakin loves Padme to the extent that he does, where he's gonna go and become a Jedi? He's the savior. He is the freaking Jesus of the Star Wars universe. And he's gonna throw it all away because Why?
Wouldn't you want to fuck Keira Knightley?
I mean, I guess.
he was part Vulcan, and he was going through part. I don't know.
And if it's the other Sheila, it doesn't matter because the other Sheila played a bodyguard and they swapped sides, and there's parts of the movie where they're playing each other and you can't tell.
I mean, I guess if you're about to join a pseudo-religious order that's saying, "Hey, you can never have sex again," then
here's Manny. He says he's done everything for love, all right, because Padme becomes the standard for love, and so forth, all right, and his everything for love aspect, naivete, is what actually is as to what actually love is. All right. The thing is, though, love is obviously a powerful motivating force, and I'm not denying that. Okay, my problem becomes okay, if that's what it is, if that's the scenario that we're going with, okay, then he has to truly love her. Otherwise, an infatuation doesn't carry the seed of I'm going to massacre children. Okay. Just because this love is over dominating me, it wouldn't overcome you like that. At least I can't see it doing that. Now maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm behind the times here, but I can't see it becoming the overall reason to where you know what, you're going to not just sacrifice yourself, but you're willing to go out there and just absolutely slaughter hundreds of innocent children. All right, to protect her.
Well, what's even worse is that, as you're saying, it's you can't even explain that type of blood in it. Because remember, from the Phantom Menace to the next one, he never sees her for 10, 15 years. That's a long time to know someone.
Manny, here's the other problem with it. Okay, Manny writes, MC, you're discounting that his mother is all he knew before Padme. Yes, it does. If you can't tell infatuation from love and devotion, I disagree. All right, and what I mean by that is okay, even if you're in that kind of mode where you're in infatuation and everything else, that doesn't erase the fact of whether or not you value human life or you don't. And when you can go in there and slaughter literally hundreds of children, you placed zero value, all right, on the human life around you. Now, show me where Anakin ever has that kind of view. Oh, he slaughters the Sand People, but see, that's vengeance for killing his mother. That's just blind rage. That happens, but that's not the callous nature that he's told to go slaughter. To have that's not the same kind of nature that it's going to take to go slaughter the freaking younglings.
Yeah, but vengeance leads to hate leads to anger leads to the dark side. But as Americans, you can't really talk about killing, the men, the women, and the children, and all that kind of stuff, because you did it in mile later, stop the communists from coming to Australia, save us from that. So you did it.
Oh, the thing is, I actually agree with Excel on this one. It is giving into the darker sides of passion. It's giving into the darker sides of human emotion, which is what the dark side's supposed to be about. The Jedi are supposed to be about not giving in to your carnal desires or your rage. That's why they're not supposed to have these types of strong passions or love or get married. And Anakin did, and it corrupted him. Not saying it's a bad thing, but maybe the Jedi aren't exactly, how should I say, maybe their approach to trying to teach people how to control their emotions is exactly the most effective one.
Well,
there you go. Now you have Vader.
Let's just ask a serious question here. MC, you're married, right?
Yes.
If someone said, okay, your wife will die tomorrow, but she'll live if you kill this school of children, even though you love her dearly, would you kill that school of children?
No.
Well, there you go. And it can't work in the movie if there's nothing to back up this love. It's one thing to him
Well,
go to
and,
the
and
dark
that's
side
what,
and maybe kill people, kill Jedi, but to kill kids,
yeah,
that just doesn't work.
the idea of the idea of, and then that's a good point. Would I defend my wife if I possibly could? Yeah. All right. If they told me, well, if your wife dies or you go kill this guy who's a homicidal maniac, I would have no problem putting a bullet in his head. All right. That's we're talking all these strange hypotheticals along those lines. And I understand the difference between passion and some of the other things, but the movies never developed that side of Anakin to the point that I ever thought that in the prequels that it was believable, that his callous nature, of human life. Now that's where the Clone Wars, I think, failed, to be honest, because they could have started showing more of a callous nature with Anakin, if nothing else, toward the clones. All right. To where he was not even looking at them as real people, whereas Anakin himself was looking at the clones as if they were, basically subhuman. That would have, or just throw away, implements no different than the droids.
Well, again, that's a fair point where the prequel trilogy they do fall flat when it comes to character development and making things believable, because a better way to look at things is like, okay, well, they killed your mom, they killed your uncle, they killed the people that raised you when you were a kid. Do you want to seek revenge? I think most people would want to seek revenge the same way that. Let me ask you guys a question. If you had a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid that's pointing a gun at your wife or your mother or your father, and you have the opportunity to take them out, well, would you let them kill your wife, your mother, or your father, or would you take them out?
Shoot him.
Well, here Manny says Anakin started trusting Palpatine more and more, and Obi-Wan less and less. This allowed Palpatine to get inside of Anakin's head. Okay, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but that you don't see that, at least not in the movie, not in the prequels. You don't see how the Emperor becomes so much more of a friend to Anakin. All right, to where he begins to trust, where Anakin begins to trust him more and more. You don't see that. You don't see, and this is the other problem, of course, is you don't see the relationship budding between Obi-Wan and Anakin to begin with.
That's the thing. It's not necessarily a problem of the character and the motivations. It's a problem of the character development, because we as the audience don't get to see the characters shift from being kind of good to being conflicted, then to shifting to the dark side.
Oh no. I was paying attention. They show it. All right, Mandy's saying that I just missed it. They were showing up and I missed it. No, I disagree. The problem is that they don't do it enough. You don't give enough time. You don't get enough service to actually make that believable. Yes, you should know a snippet there, but you're like, okay, he meets them once and then he walks off. I mean, so what? Okay, the council won't let him do things, but Palpatine wants to. I think you're ready. Go ahead, give him that fatherly encouragement. Okay, I see those things. I understand them. All right, but they don't do it. It's more of a jarring hit and miss kind of a thing rather than something that you see developing. All right, it doesn't seem organic. It seems forced.
I don't disagree. It makes sense as to why, because they do provide us with the motivations, but it does go from an A, B, C, D type of
Maddie,
approach.
The link is in Mad's chat if you wanted to join us, or Mad's Discord. All right, if you want to join us, you feel free to join in. That would be fine.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with the first one. They really should have expanded on Anakin being older and doing like was said, doing missions and learning to be a Jedi and all this kind of stuff, and then lasting out the corruption a little bit longer.
There you are, Mad Dodge. Welcome back. I was worried. What happened to you?
He lost his top hat. But no, it would have been a lot better if they actually, in the prequel trilogies, can we not focus on the Jedi Council and Palpatine and all of the intergalactic politics, but actually mostly focus on Anakin and his confliction? Because they already told us in the prequel trilogy, they didn't want to train him. He's too old. He has these types of carnal desires. He is, well, what we would call human. He has these strong passions about him that could easily corrupt him and force him to the dark side, which they inevitably do. But can we develop that a little bit more? That's really what the prequel trilogy should have been about.
Do seem to the dark side. Yeah, the seduction techniques are not there. That's I think that's probably where it is.
Yeah, you know, if like fucking like they could have still done the politics and all this, you know, to do the taxation so Palpatine can, you know, usurp the
Give me a second, Manny. I'll put it in general. I'm sorry, Farty, go ahead.
And but have Anakin at like 15 years old, closer to what Princess Amidala's fucking age was. So, you know, like when they, you know, they go to sort it out, it's Anakin and fucking and Obi-Wan. Don't worry about Qui-Gon, or maybe even Qui-Gon's there for some bloody reason as a supervisor. That, like, you know, they go to help out with taxation thing, and that's how Anakin meets Padme, and through that they can start the relationship, you know.
Okay, it's
quick.
in general now, Maddie. So please join. Because I'd really like to hear your impressions with this too.
And real quick, just to address the chat, Geek Cthulhu, you're 100% correct. The Jedi do have emotions, and that's the entire reason that they didn't want to train Anakin, is because he's old enough that they don't know if they can actually train him to control his emotions, which makes you more susceptible to the dark side. That's kind of the whole point.
But then what are you going to do? Abandon him to the dark side? I mean, it was a stupid freaking concept to begin with. Okay, so you have this kid.
I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying it
with the Force. He's just wanting to go out there and explore it on his own.
Real quick, MC. I'm not saying it's a stupid concept, but I'm saying the concept that they presented to us is that we don't want to train him because he's too old. He's already at least subject to his emotions. We already know, or emotions. He's already strong in the Force. Can we actually train him to control his emotions, or is he going to become a slave to his emotions? Is he going to turn to the dark side?
What was your
choice?
Kind of
the whole point.
What was your choice of not training him and let him become a slave to his emotions?
I think MC, what Doku's argument is, like, do you want to train the kid to learn karate and jiu-jitsu and taekwondo and all that just to find out he becomes the bully?
Well, okay, but you know that he has this potential to do it anyway on his own. If you don't sit up there and do something to monitor it, if you don't sit up there and try and take any kind of action, then you're just gonna create the same monster that people are talking about going forward, right?
Well, that's
real
what I was
quick.
trying.
Hold on.
Hey, Maddie.
Hi.
Real quick, Geek Cthulhu has a really, really good point, and this is a solid point. It was the failure of the Jedi Order to not train Anakin in a way that actually would have worked for him, knowing that he's already too old. Like, yes, he's already kind of starting to look at girls. He already has his emotions and his passions and everything. The Jedi Order sticking to tradition, and I agree with Geek on this one, they could not break the tradition and train Anakin in a way that would have stopped him from going to the dark side. So I will agree that is a failure on the Jedi Order's part because they
Well-
could not break from tradition.
Well, that was
Well,
their
yeah.
first excuse for not training Anakin. Their second one was that they sensed sadness in him, and that sadness could turn him to the dark side. They were trying to find any excuse possible not to train Anakin, which is why Qui-Gon Jinn argued with the council in order to have him trained.
Well, just real quick on that point, I've got two, thanks. Because it wasn't just for a quick doku. Just on that point there. Fuck. Never mind on that point. I'll remember it in a sec. But the point I was originally going to say was what MC was saying is that, well, it didn't really matter if they didn't train him because, well, it's not like, he was going to learn it on his own. The only way he's going to lure himself to the dark side is if, like, someone came along and made him a Sith.
Well, the problem is the way they had set him up. First, okay, I'm not discounting single parents because I was one, so that's out of the way.
Yeah.
Him becoming an orphan, first of all, that's one emotional trauma. That led to his sadness. So that led to him trying to find anyone that he could look up to, whether that be a same-sex role model or another female to attach or bond to, which led to the relationship, however forced, between him and Padme. Okay? Now, would that relationship have worked? Yes, but in my personal opinion, Anakin needed to be within a few years age difference of her, not looking like a small child and then her being a grown woman, or at least almost being a grown woman in the first movie. But then
Right,
again,
no,
you
I
have the
agree with you
problem
there.
of then you have the problem of this. If you make him a teenager in order to make the romance work, then he'll be too old to be a youngling for training. So they had that particular plot point to work through and try and explain away. Number two, because he was young, because he was orphaned at a young age and looking for emotional attachments, it's easy for him to mistake infatuation or obsession with love in Padme's respect because he wasn't taught what a healthy relationship was because he had no mother to teach him, and the Jedi do not believe in emotional attachments.
Well, no, okay, but
No, I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
And when she's done,
Okay.
I'll fucking remember my second point so you can bloody wait it.
Next point is he tried to attach himself to Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon died. He became the Padawan, for lack of a better term, or the actual term you're supposed to use, to Obi-Wan, who was too young to train someone and too inexperienced in training someone. This led to a lot of problems in between the training because Anakin felt that since he was stronger than Obi-Wan, that his training should be accelerated, and feeling that he was being set back because Obi-Wan didn't want to train him as fast as Anakin wanted to be trained. Point number three, because he was being held back or felt like he was being held back, he started turning to Palpatine for advice, taking walks and talking with Palpatine, which we saw in the movies. After he had his vision of Padme possibly dying and one person telling him to dismiss it, he went to Palpatine and told him, and Palpatine saw this as the perfect opportunity to start manipulating him and turning him to the dark side, which actually inevitably worked.
Preach, sister.
okay.
Yeah.
However,
Well, just real quick.
let's talk about this for a second.
Hang on,
Well,
hang on, just real quick, MC. In the point for the comment, yeah, we mentioned this before, where the whole Anakin being too old, is negated by Luke and Rey Sue. Look how old they were.
Oh, Luke's a Mary Sue too. So is
No, he's
Anakin.
not.
Yeah,
Right.
he is.
Yeah.
He put a helmet on and waved a lightsaber around, and now he can fire 2 proton torpedoes into a 2-meter
He was
hole.
already doing that, and they had already even
Oh, the
experienced it
Womp Rat
before.
excuse.
They had already talked
his
about it.
T7. Was it T17 or T7?
They had already
T7.
talked about that he
T7.
had already flown these kinds of things. And yes, now
In Beggars Canyon.
as far as getting into a fighter and doing things like that, it was not nearly as jarring as some of the crap that frickin' Ray does.
Okay. Let's
Okay,
get back to
well,
what we were
real-
discussing.
real quick.
Let's get back to this.
Well,
All right. First of all,
MC, real quick. Okay. First off, Samuel L. Jackson's character used emotion when he fought. He was much more
Vapad.
close to the Sith than anybody else on the council. So the fact that they shun anybody that uses emotion is, well, quite ridiculous to me. And second, I'm gonna disappear in the back room so Excel can jump on for a few minutes because there's only 6 spots, but I will be back.
okay.
Well, he's talking about Vapad, and it's a balance between light and dark. What's it? Form 7? I think that's
Yeah.
what it's called.
It what it does is it cycles it through your body and then back out, so that you don't become corrupted.
Okay.
That's the style.
That doesn't. But my point with the way the movies work, the prequels, right? Yes, I understand that he is powerful and that he is frustrating because they're holding him back. All right, but to be honest, okay, first of all, he was much younger, all right, than a teenager. They present him as 10 years old. All right, so the idea that somehow in the prequels he was too old to start the training, that's just nonsense.
Well,
Like I said,
Maddie brought up the point that when they were searching him, when you have Ki-Adi Mundi go, your mother, they can sense a lot of emotion in him, and that
that would be normal for a child at that age. Okay,
right.
To say that's extraordinary and that his sadness is
It's extraordinary in terms of the Jedi traditions and their anachronistic shit.
Yep.
Yeah, that is exceptional.
Well, but okay, you can claim that, but I mean, to be honest,
that's true.
If they were working at that from that perspective, but you've got to sit there and make a whole slew of assumptions to agree with that.
MC, there's a difference between sadness because you broke up with a best friend and the deep sorrow, sadness, and depression that follows from losing a parent, which is what they were sensing when they felt him.
He didn't lose a parent.
No, but his mind was elsewhere. His mind was on his mother, and you can't have those distractions when you're training to be a Jedi.
Right. But see, you're making things about
I'm not making things
for a
up.
child when a child is 10. All right, children at that age, all right, will adapt very quickly generally, and someone that's already been. Hold on a second, because he'd already been several different times separated from his mother because she was a slave. It wasn't like that he was being told you'll never see your mother again, and it wasn't like that he had never been apart from his mother because he had been. So the idea that he is
when
all right, from the start of that,
MC, you're just going on and on. Let's stop at that point. When did he get separated from his mother previously?
Because he lived with her.
Well, he wasn't always with her when he was developing and building all those things for Watto. He wasn't with her for several different times as he was training to be a
what? Because she went to work.
Yeah, I was gonna say. There's a little bit difference between you're not with your mom because she went to work, and you're not with your mom because
hold on, but
she's
you're
across
talking
the
about
galaxy and you can't talk or see her.
period of time. Okay.
What? But was it? Right, as far as I'm concerned, it was probably just a daily thing, right?
Yeah, probably.
The reason why
he went home at night to his mother every night.
I don't see it that way.
The reason why she was sold to Watto is because she got knocked up, and at that point,
we
he
don't
worked
know.
for Watto.
Again, the fact that he's going away he didn't have any problem with going away from her temporarily when he went to Naboo.
I have way less of a problem with anything that happened with Child Anakin as I do with how Hayden Christensen was terrible, and they did a terrible job of making you ever like Anakin.
I blame George
I can't
Lucas
argue with you there.
for poor directing.
But what I'm trying to point out is that they didn't develop this the way they could have, and it would have been better to have developed it a little bit more.
Yeah,
and
like make you like Anakin at any point in episodes 2 or 3.
Okay. as much as we disagree on this, we could probably agree on this fine point. It doesn't matter how good, mediocre, or bad the actor. When they're given a bad script, they can only do so much with it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yep.
I know what I'm saying is, at no point did I ever like Anakin in episodes 2 or 3. I thought he was fine in the Clone Wars animated series, which is why I said they did a much better job of that than anything they did. With
the series, like even Rebels was fucking amazing.
Rebels was great, and
Like-
a lot of that set up the. I mean, I thought they were setting up the episode 7, 8, and 9 for a pretty awesome story, and they just completely.
And no, I would agree with you there too. But they missed the mark. I think in the Clone Wars, they missed opportunities. All right.
Well, they missed opportunities in all of the movies. I mean, there were so many things that could be done.
Mhm.
I mean, the nearest to perfection is episode 5, and it's still got problems.
Oh, what are your problems with the Empire Strikes Back?
Empire Strikes Back. Not enough time with Yoda. Not enough. Just to me, it feels like they're only playing with 2 set pieces, and they don't really spend enough. There's too much jumping back and forth in order to, because like once it starts getting to a point where you're like, oh, I'm getting somewhere,
but you had to
then
make
it
a
jumps.
choice there. No, so that at least
I'm saying it's the best movie, but it still has issues with pacing.
The pacing was for what they were trying to do. I thought worked well. What were you going to say, Maddie? I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, I'm agreeing with about the pacing. I mean, it could have been paced way better.
Well, but it would have slowed down the movie. You were going to have a 4-hour movie.
Well, or you could have done another movie instead of just calling it a trilogy. Because let's face it, a lot of these things could have been done if they would have taken the time, put the storyboards out, really examine the storyboards and go, okay, we actually can do this in 2 movies instead of 1. So instead of cramming it into 1 movie, let's turn this into 4 instead of 3, and let's focus on this for a minute.
Yeah, I don't think back when Lucas made the original trilogy that would have been an option, but it certainly was an option for Disney.
I think the problem,
well, yeah, 7, 8, and 9 was like they put a whole movie, they put a whole trilogy in 9.
But
Yeah,
like
they tried to merge. They literally tried to merge Empire and the Return of the Jedi into one movie.
The problem there becomes because of what they did with Empire. All right, the reality is that Han Solo becomes a major character, whereas before he was just a sidelight.
No.
Han is just as responsible for that Death Star getting blown up as Luke was, because Vader would have killed Luke if it wasn't for Han.
I don't disagree. But when you introduced Han that way, or when the way they had done Han, he was not as integral to the storyline as Luke. Luke was going to be always the primary protagonist. After Empire, because of how much time they devoted to Han Solo, he became a co-protagonist. He was as much of a protagonist.
Well, no, I would say Han, Luke, and Leia were all equal.
No, Leia is tertiary. She really is.
What? Are you high?
Or as a I'm not saying that she's not important, but they don't do the character development for Leia that they spend time with Luke and that they spend time with Han with.
What? Her character development in Empire was tied to Han.
Yeah.
They both grew as characters.
Yes, they did.
Even in episode 4,
strictly to her. Okay, she isn't on her own. At no point is she separated doing things on her own. She is always there with Han when Han is doing things on her own.
Hoth.
What?
Hoth.
What did she do in Hoth?
She
was giving orders and coordinating the evacuation of the planet so the Empire
when Han was
Yeah,
there to go in there and save her. All right.
No, Han didn't save her. She was willing to sacrifice. She was willing to sacrifice herself to make sure everyone got off.
I'm not saying she's not an important character. I'm saying they.
Oh wow! Do you know anything about Star Wars?
Leia as they did the other 2.
All right, man. Let's I'm gonna go watch Empire and just do a stopwatch for the number of minutes of characters referenced or on screen. Put it into this.
Leia's an extremely important character. They developed the shit out of her character. She is so different.
In 4, when Luke and Han went to rescue her, she wound up rescuing them.
Yes, exactly.
I don't disagree with that, but that's not character development.
Her character development is she's a tough as nails broad. I'm a woman. I don't need nobody to do nothing for me. And then in episode 5, I'm trying to explain it to you, but MC, you're too busy letting your jaw rattle. But in episode 5, she softens. She connects to someone and she develops as a character.
She developed as a love interest for Han and nothing more.
Oh no, she didn't. Oh no.
The point is,
I'm pretty sure the planet got destroyed, and she decided to become a leader in a rebellion against the Empire. So
she took up her daddy's role.
All happened.
Fucking hell!
Prior to the first.
But it happened. That's the point.
No, but it happened before she was even on the Death Star the first time.
The point is, when do you see? For fuck's sake, MC, give it a rest, will you, son? Fucking, when do you see her alone? It's very rare. It's either her with fucking Han, or it's her with Luke, or it's the three of them together. It's only on the Death Star or at the beginning where you see her all alone. So yes, she's a tertiary character. Like fuck's sake,
I wouldn't call her. I wouldn't call her tertiary.
She's a supporting actress like Han. But the whole thing is they had character arcs because Han actually had a really big one being a supporting actor because he went from selfish spice runner smuggler to somebody who was a part of something bigger and actually cared for something other than himself chewing in his ship.
Look at the character development that they do with Han. All right, you get introduced to Han Solo's changes. All right, the fact that he went after Luke, the fact that bounty hunters are still after him. Then you run into his past. You run into Lando Calrissian. All right, when they're talking about
you know why the bounty hunters are still after him, right? MC
for Han that you don't get for Leia.
I just disagree with you. I think Leia as a character is Leia as a small child. When I saw Leia, I fucking loved Leia. Mm-hmm. I was like, what a positive fucking female model
I'm
to
not
use
in her importance
and
to the movie.
You are. You think she's a tertiary character and she's irrelevant.
I'm not saying she's irrelevant. I'm saying that
you could have replaced her with anybody. Is basically
she's not the kind of protagonist that they make out of Luke and they make out of Han.
That's because Luke is a main character and Han is the secondary supporting character. She is a third or second supporting character, and she does have an arc.
I disagree with your characterization of Han being a supporting character. Han becomes as much of a protagonist as Luke does.
No, the three of them are leads. It just goes in rank order.
Well, Luke, I'm pretty sure only one of them was in the scene with the last battle with Darth Vader. So,
all right,
I would say they
real quick before you guys decide to fucking rip each other's heads off.
I'll kill you!
Before you guys decide to rip each other's heads off, I'm gonna dip. No, I'm enjoying this a lot, but I have to go cater to the fucking family. But I will be listening in because I want to see who actually wins this battle royale. It's quite entertaining.
Well, I mean, if I may, in 4, we were introduced to Leia. She was a diplomat at the time. She was actually doing work for the rebellion. However, between that and during 4, she did not agree with the established rebellion at the time, which is why she wound up breaking off and doing a second rebel force. Now, that aside, we're going to put that over here in the corner for a minute. She started out by being a self-centered person who didn't think she didn't need anybody rescuing Luke and Han when they came to quote unquote rescue her and got in the shit. Now, second movie, we have character development with her because she finds out that she's a sister.
No, she doesn't find that out until the third.
The third movie. But during the second movie, she realizes that all this shit is greater than her, that she needs to put her ego aside, which is what she winds up doing after lots of arguments, I might add, and actually trying to make Han be jealous by kissing her. Oh shit, he's my brother in the third movie. Luke in the second. Okay? Third movie, she actually grows more because now she has to contend with the fact that, oh shit, the guy I kissed in the second movie was actually my brother. Yuck. And now, I have this guy that's my dad, and now I have to deal with this because this means I can actually have to manipulate the Force, which happens in the extended universe in books and comic books that we're not going to discuss here. She's actually the leader of the rebellion, and she is still a diplomat. The problem is she's a rebel first, a diplomat second, and a girlfriend third, MC.
What she is, all right, I'm not arguing the point. I'm just saying that her character development isn't shown on screen. She doesn't, you end up having to, okay, these things are thrown in, you have to accept these things. And I don't disagree with your characterization at all. I totally agree with it. But you don't see it develop. You don't see it on screen.
Yes, you do.
You do not. You have to.
You do.
Her character growth is.
Her presented. You don't see it. No, you don't see it developing. You see it presented to you as if it's already a fact.
No, you don't. Quote, we have to go back. Luke is alive. The moment she realizes she can feel her brother is a character growth.
That was I agree with you. That was character development, but it's not to the degree that they do with Han, and it's not to the degree that they do with Luke.
Because Luke is the focal protagonist in the trilogy, and Han is the secondary one. Exactly.
I disagree with you. Han, after Empire, Han becomes as much of a protagonist in that storyline, all right, as Luke does. People
but isn't that a product?
As much about what happens with Han and how his
what
story's
year?
gonna go as they do with Luke.
MC, what year was these movies made in? Isn't it a product of its time?
What does that mean? What does that matter?
Yeah, I don't.
What does that mean? Okay, is the woman really going to be the leader of the whole goddamn rebellion in the 60s and 70s? I fucking doubt it.
There was a woman. Her name was Mon Mothma. She was the leader of the rebellion.
Right. The leader of the rebellion actually was an entirely different character that you never get to see except for that one time in the third movie.
No, she's in the first one too, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no.
I could have swore it was her and General Jan Dodonna. Like they were.
No, she's in Jedi. They're talking about the second. She's in Jedi when they're talking about the second Death Star. Yeah,
she's only in the Return of the Jedi. She's not
maybe it was Crix Maydeen was the one in
right. And to be honest, at that time frame in Hollywood, I think that there wouldn't have been a problem with showing that, to be honest.
No, she was in the prequels, I'm pretty sure. I know that there was a deleted scene when like Mon Mothma and Padme and fucking.
Right. Well, the prequels, but we're talking about the first three, right? We went back to the first three.
Yeah, she was in Revenge of the Sith where she was talking to Bail Organa about the Senate and the Chancellor, and they were sort of setting up the ideals of the rebellion.
Right, but that's the prequels, though. I mean, that's not part of the first three. It's not that I disagree with where Leia is. What I'm talking about is, as people were watching, I mean, you can see it already in the culture. There are more people who care about what Han was doing, all right, as they was about Luke. In some ways, people cared more about what Han was doing from a protagonist, from a story perspective. All right, Han was as big a storyline that was going on as Luke's was. Yes, it was.
No, I would say retroactively, just like the way the movie was designed. We're looking at Luke's story mainly. Luke is the focal point of Empire, whereas Han, he just had some good scenes, and like they're very iconic, and retroactively we kind of look back at that and go, oh, that was real. That sort of makes Han more than what he was.
Okay, I agree with your characterization that it wasn't intentional. All right, I agree that it was, but what I'm saying is that it happened. That's all.
So
I sort of agree with your point there, MC, where you say that, like, you know, Han's arc wasn't really there. Like, it was very, very thin. It was the whole Jabba the Hutt, fucking he owes him money backstory kind of thing there. That they did try and sort of beef up a little bit in the director's cuts and all that kind of shit. But fucking that was there. It was all the way there from the beginning. You know, when we first meet him, like Han shooting first and all that kind of shit.
What were you saying, Excel?
Han Solo. I mean, I get the point that you're trying to make in Geek 2 in retrospect, but one of the things is he was the first space rogue, and that archetype has been a fan favorite ever since. But also, I feel like a lot of this is a moot point, because when I think of all three characters, like, I'm from start to finish, I'm really happy. Like, I have a good idea from like where Han, where Leia, and where Luke started out at, and how they grew and where they ended in Return of the Jedi.
Oh, also,
like, I don't really care about whose development was more, because when I watch it, I feel like I understand all the characters and their importance.
Mitch also brings up another good point about Leia and her development. In Return of the Jedi, she did go undercover as a bounty hunter, infiltrate Jabba's palace, and this was also a bit of character development.
It was.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. All right, but I just wish quite frankly, I wish they would have taken the time to do more of a backstory on Leia. All right, that you naturally see from Luke because of his young age.
Well, he doesn't really have that much
of
a backstory.
Well, you do, because you know that you see him starting off as the farm kid. Okay.
Yeah, but that's about it.
You see him then expanding. With Han Solo, you get the backstory as you start getting introduced to people from his past, like Lando Calrissian. You don't get either one of those for Leia.
Because pragmatically speaking, the life of a diplomat and politician isn't as exciting as the life of a farm boy gone into space.
I don't disagree with you. I was just trying to point out that
when he was writing
how things turned out. And after Return of the Jedi, or I'm sorry, after Empire rather, people were were interested in Return of the Jedi as much for what was going to happen to Han Solo as they were, well, what's going to happen to the rebellion and Luke.
Like the Han Solo and Leia's story, really in the second and third acts of Return of the Jedi, were nowhere near what they were previously. You know, they're like C story. You know,
well,
the A story is Luke in the throne room. B story is the space battle. C story is the ground battle.
I agree with you, but you got to remember, I'm talking about it from an impression standpoint as people were viewing it. Why people were viewing Return of the Jedi.
And in my opinion, Han Solo didn't really do a whole lot in Return of the Jedi.
I think you guys are all wrong, and Chewbacca is the main character of this story.
Yes. This is a long game to freak a chic.
Hashtag Wookiee Lives Matter. Well,
like more often than not, man.
It would be interesting to see more of a backstory with Chewie. I was not the attempt to do Solo was so poorly done
I think for what it wasn't bad. Just
Really,
because
I couldn't make it through the entire movie. I fell asleep every time I tried and gave up.
The reason why I say this is because, like, the original director, he left the project, and then Ron Howard came in to take over. They had to rewrite most of the script. I think for like, if understanding that part, I think Solo is actually a pretty good movie. I mean, if it was one director, one writing team, and that's what you got, yeah, maybe be a little upset by it. But
I feel like you're giving it the same sympathy that a lot of people are giving the Rise of Skywalker.
I didn't mind Rise of Skywalker. I think it was a
visually stimulating. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but at least your senses are getting fed the entire time.
Well, what the problem with Rise of Skywalker, once again, is the pacing issue. Is that there's too much story. You're just getting bombarded over and over again. Like, if you took those elements and were able to spread those out over 2 to 3 movies,
I know
shit, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, you could have been fine, but it was a sequel. It was the third movie in a trilogy, but it was for a different second movie than the one that any of us saw.
It was an attempt to polish a turd, and it still only wound up as a turd.
And the thing is, Last Jedi could have been a great movie too.
It absolutely could have, but it wasn't.
Yeah, before we get to these last three, though, I want to ask each one of you in turn. All right, this is the same question I had asked the other guys. All right, which is, man, and I'll start with Manny. All right, when did you first see Star Wars, and how old were you, and what was your impression of it?
God damn, I don't remember how old I was.
Well, I
know I was a kid. I know I was a kid.
We
and I
reached this age that we kind of start to forget.
Yeah, no shit. I know they came out. The thing is I know I couldn't have seen it when it came out. So it probably went after it was out on VHS and I was older, because I would have been 4 when the first movie came out in 1977. So, but I remember watching it, and I remember rooting for Luke, and I remember, at first thinking that, I didn't know the word for it at the time, so I was a kid, but thinking that Han was a selfish prick and Leia was stuck up in the first movie. And by the third movie, I kind of liked seeing Luke. I was still rooting for Luke. I really got around to liking Han Solo, and Leia to me was a very strong female character that I could get behind, because she weathered everything that was thrown at her, and she was still able to go, all right, fuckers, I'm still here. Who's next?
Yeah, okay, but for the first one, what kind of impression did the first movie make on you? What was your impression of it?
That I wanted to see more.
Okay.
Is this all the story? Because I wanted to see more. Yeah, the flashing lights when you're a kid is great, but I actually like the story because I think I was old enough to realize, hey, there's actually a story here, and it's pretty good.
It was so different.
Yeah.
Than everything out.
Geek, same question to you.
Oh, my first movie was Empire Strikes Back. I was like just turned 3, I think. And I remember my grandpa taking me to it, and he was like, oh, I guess he'll like this. And then I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, this is dark as fuck, as a kid. But in the 80s, you always had like dark kids movies.
Yeah.
Never Ending Story was a dark fucking story.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. It's like
Dark Crystal come out in that
yeah, Dark
Yeah.
Crystal. Yeah, like all children's shit was a lot darker. So Empire Strikes Back, I was like, all right, this is cool. And then,
let me tell you, it was better than the nihilistic age of the 70s. But go on.
So I saw Empire Strikes Back first, and I was just like, oh wait, there's another movie. And so I watched the first Star Wars movie on like VHS or some shit like that, or I think it was like Betamax or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was some video format. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then I made my grandpa go take me out and watch Return or episode 5 again. And I was just like, all right, let's watch this now that I got more context. And I fucking Star Wars changed me as a kid, because like it was Like number one, you've never seen any type of special effects like that before. It was the most amazing thing you've ever seen. You're like, this looks great. This looks better than anything that I've seen. Battlestar Galactica, suck my dick. We got Star Wars, and then you got laser swords. Fuck yes, this is even more amazing. Darth Vader, this guy is awesome.
Okay, Excel, same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, my family had it on VHS, and I couldn't tell you which is the first one I watched, but I can tell you that it was, it got eaten by the VCR several times over because it's all I watched all throughout elementary school. That and Transformers the movie. But yeah, like my
what
first
a sad movie
impression.
that was.
Yeah. We won't get into that. It's a whole nother show.
I literally cried as a child.
Me too. Me too. But yeah, it was very similar. I was like, wow, I want to be an astronaut, and I also, how do I make a lightsaber? Like, when I was a kid, that's really where I was at. I wasn't looking into the deep meaning. I love the heroes being powerful and winning and beating the bad guys because as a kid you understand that.
Yeah.
My entire bedroom was Star Wars. I had curtains, bed sheets, comforter. I had an R2D2 trash can. Fucking.
Yes, you're a little bit older than me. You're closer to my brother's age, geeks. So my brother was more of that kid, right? The Star Wars everything. Yeah. And my mom he had like all the toys, and my mom sold them all in a garage sale. Oh, and now she wants to cry about it. She won't sell any toys now. Like she just has mountains of old toys for my nephews and stuff.
I still have my Kenner Millennium Falcon in Ewok Village.
I am kicking myself that I let my mom give away my 13-inch R2D2 that you could swap around the circuit boards and my 13-inch Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys, this amazes me because I was older when I watched it. All right, I was already a teenager. Okay, I saw the first one in '77 in the movies in the theater. All right, because I was, like I said, I was a teenager. All right, so I don't have the impression with the toys and the kids and everything else. Was I aware of all the memorabilia that was created because of it and thought it was kind of cool? Yeah. Did I go out there and want to play with it like, because it's a kid's toy? No. Did I have to get it to my kids later on? Yeah, I did have to get some of that stuff for my kids. All right, and they promptly destroyed most of it, but that's a separate issue. Okay, but that's the reason I asked. The reason I'm asking at this is to see how this developed into the kind of iconic, legacy that it took on. Star Wars took on a legacy and a franchise that people had never seen before. In fact, I don't think there's ever been a franchise like Star Wars.
Well, there hasn't been, and it's because in my personal opinion, it's when you see Luke is your everyday kid. Yeah, he's on a different planet, but that's beside the point. He's your everyday kid that wants to be something a little bit more than he is.
The big fish in a small pond story.
Right. And it's like it's not like you could project yourself onto him, but you could feel that no matter how old you are. It's the fact that he had to do chores every day, and what kid likes doing chores?
Because when you're a little kid, you still honestly believe that you can
Uncle
be president
Owen,
someday.
I need to go to Tashi Station to get some power converters.
I can tell you that had more of an impression on me coming from a farm. All right, being a farm kid to start with.
Yeah, I lived on a ranch. I grew up on a ranch.
Yeah. I mean, it's that. I think that is why why the fandom grew, because everybody could pick a character in that movie and go, I want to be that. I can identify with that, or I can project myself in that, or I want to be that. I want to experience that. I want to be out in the stars, and I want to do what they're doing.
A life of adventure.
So like elementary school me, I want to be Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
when I was in junior high and high school, when the remastered versions came out, I'm like, I want to be Han Solo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, how's this? Last Christmas, fucking my brother, there's this hardware store called Bunnings in Australia, and they had in their garden centre these 2 foot tall fucking little concrete fucking garden gnome things, always R2D2, C3PO, a stormtrooper, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker. I got my brother the whole set. He's the biggest Star Wars fan than I am.
Yeah,
I
in Star
had
Wars
one
is
of those,
bigger.
I had one of those robot things. It looked like R2D2, and it had a little tray and a joystick, so you could put shit on the tray and drive it around the living room.
Oh,
That's pretty much
that
the
must be
extent
nice.
of what it did.
That was a Return of the Jedi toy for sure.
Yeah, I had the Jabba the Hutt playset. I had the small Han Solo, which always kind of, and the small Chewie. I had an X-wing. I had the 13-inch Darth Vader, which quickly got decapitated, literally. The 13-inch Luke Skywalker and the 13-inch R2D2. It was when I went, hey, and my dad heard smack, and he walked in the room just as I was lopping off Darth Vader's head, literally, and said, "This is why we can't buy you shit." And he goes back upstairs.
So you were
Oh.
basically lasering his head off, is what
Right,
you're trying to say.
right. I also had the TIE Fighter, which I took apart in a certain sequential order, and my dad went, "See, this is why we can't buy you shit. You take it apart." And I looked at him and said, "I can put it back together." And he sat there and he goes, "Okay."
You just tell your father it's the Episode 5 Dark Side cave version of Darth Vader. You know, when Luke cut his head off.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, he sat there and I put the whole thing back together and he goes, "All right, does it work?" I put the battery in it and the TIE Fighter went, he goes, "I give up." And he went upstairs.
But like with Star Wars though, even outside of, like, you know, as a kid, you see those things, but even for an adult during the era that it came out, it had such a cinematic impact in terms of like the way that they visually displayed everything.
Yeah.
The special effects and it created the modern sci-fi genre.
It
You
grabbed.
do not have the modern sci-fi genre without Star Wars.
Well, see, to me, it's like I thank Lucas for this because he fought for this, and it got you from the get-go, not because of the opening credits, but because of the lack of them. The scrolling story at the beginning, the Star Destroyer coming into the scene, it pulled your eyes in and made you sit down.
The sound score.
Yeah,
I
when
don't
you hear the
think you can-
rumbling,
You know,
You're
I'm
like,
sorry
I'm gonna shut-
talking right now, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like when in episode 4, when you see the Tantive 4, the Corellian Corvette, like come, and then you hear that rumbling, and then you see that Star Destroyer go overhead, you immediately, as a child, shut the fuck up and just stare. I go, this is fucking amazing.
I can tell you that the sound score, right as that crawl starts, right, left an impression on me right from the get-go. You hadn't seen anything yet, and you hear that music hit, and you're like,
Oh yeah, that
Whoa.
fanfare.
You
That fanfare sends chills through your
Yeah,
body.
exactly. Even as a child, I remember getting goosebumps listening to just the score for Star Wars, all of them.
and even the Empire, you know, the Empire
Imperial
Strikes Back,
March?
the Imperial March. I mean, it's just it's phenomenal, and Lucas added all of that. You don't have, like I said, you do not have the modern science fiction that we have today without that. And to be honest, Battlestar Galactica attempted to capitalize on that, because when Battlestar Galactica came out, the first part of it, you also have that big sound score. I recognize, it became iconic. The sound, that music became iconic with Battlestar Galactica. All right, so but the reality is to try and do that in a movie versus trying to do that on a television series. I mean, it just didn't work.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, this is the impact that the trilogy's had on me, because this is gonna crack everybody up. But when my son and I were sharing who had what ringtones on their smartphone, he was very reticent to show me that Beethoven Fifth was my ringtone on his phone. And I'm like, "You want to know what ringtone I have for your grandmother?" He goes, "What?" And I started playing it. It was dun 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 dun.
Mine is the opening fanfare music, the theme. It just, like, as soon as you call me, he's like, Ba, 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 ba. It's so loud too. Like I was in a doctor's office and I forgot to turn my ringer off, and it just went off, and like all the kids like looked at me and went,
Yeah.
"That's cool," and like I'm just like, "Oh my god, I look like a fucking nerd."
Oh, the best ringtone I ever had was one that I made myself, and it always seemed to go off in very, very quiet places. Like I went to vote one day, and it was very early in the morning. It was me and about 5 or 6 other people there, and they're all clerks and shit like that. And all of a sudden, from a back pocket came.
Now,
And everyone's
here,
just pissed
Go ahead.
themselves laughing. I'm like, oh shit, get out, you bastard! Fucking trying to dig it out and stop it.
because Mom had asked me and I told her the story and she started laughing. And when I told her when we got back to Verizon from her having a phone line, she goes, "Have you set your phone up yet?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. I set my phone up." She goes, "Am I still Darth Vader?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Good. Keep it that way."
Oh, my text notification was R2 squealing. Like it, yeah. I'm a huge Star Wars mark.
Man, I'm Star Wars and Star Trek because my text
I
thinks
love them
my
both.
incoming is Worf going incoming message.
Oh, I love Star Trek too. I don't like the new Star Trek.
No.
But like yeah, the Next Generation. Oh, it's so good.
So while I really
What?
came here to bitch about the new trilogy, I actually have family stuff to do now too. Thanks for having me on, man. Nice talking to you geeks. Been a while. Thanks, UMC.
Thanks for
Later,
coming.
XL.
Nice meeting you.
I'm gonna kick your ass in some Street Fighter sometime later.
Yeah,
Let's get this
sometime
work.
soon. Yeah, dude, set up a tournament over the holidays. That'd be great.
All right, man.
All right, man. Take care.
We'll talk Star Trek another time as far as everything's later. XL, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I
the best-
gotta
the
wrap
best-
it
the-
up soon anyway. I got a message when we started. Your 20 hours are almost done already. I want to do a stream on New Year's Eve. So, any last thoughts about Star Wars before we wrap it up, so I can save a couple hours on my monthly allotment? Fucking
I'm good.
yard.
Yeah, the best use of the Vader's march that I've ever seen was a video I saw on Life League one night, where it's just a video of a woman in a burqa walking down the street, full black burqa, and it's dun 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 dun. Anyway, I thought it was fucking hilarious. 3 o'clock in the morning, pissed us apart.
All right, man. I appreciate you having me on talking about this because I was curious about it.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
about
thank
to.
you everybody for coming on, and Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope you
You
guys
too.
have a wonderful day tomorrow.
Well,
I
fucking
won't be
humbug.
doing a stream
What
or
do you mean
nothing. I'm
tomorrow?
hanging out with the family, so.
What do you mean tomorrow? It's already fucking Christmas.
Not all of us are in the future there, weird guy from Australia.
You bloody backwards fucking Americans always behind. Catch up, fuck yous.
We live in a place where everything doesn't want to kill us. Holy shit. Australia is scary as shit.
All
Like,
right.
I got
I
so
think
much
that's enough. Good,
poisonous
Merry
shit.
Christmas, everybody. Take it easy.
Okay. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you all. And 1,000 blessings upon your home and family. And if you happen to be eating your Christmas turkey right now, I hope it fucking chokes you.
Oh, gee, we love you too.
Yeah, that was nice. And get out of here.